Whenever you're ready.
Give me a second.
Composure.
Am I in frame?
Yep, you're good.
In my kindergarten class, we weren't given grades A through F. We were given either a check mark, a check plus, or an X, depending on how well we did in our assignment. And at the end of the week, the teacher wouldn't necessarily collect the papers and look at them one by one, but they kind of average out what they thought how well we did with all of the assignments over the whole week, and they would assign it a letter grade. And on my first 2 weeks to kindergarten, my grades were a C, and I think the next one was like a C plus or C minus, but I was a normal C. Which isn't that big of a deal. I mean, it's kindergarten, first 2 weeks, those grades don't matter too much. But every single paper that I had gotten back had been a check plus. And I started to notice that a few of the kids above me, in fact, all the kids like 4 or 5 slots above me grade-wise, and all the ones below me, they were also all boys. And all the people with the top grades in the class were all girls. Now, this, of course, could have been due to disciplinary actions to have to be taken against us. I mean, I did talk a lot in kindergarten. I know it's hard to believe. But we also noticed that there were a few girls that threw a lot of tantrums, or they talked almost just as we did, much as we did. In fact, I had a friend that I sat next to, and the one that I talked to, and who I was always getting in trouble for talking to, talked just as much as me. But we never really saw her in the timeout corner, and her grades were A's every single time, though her papers sometimes came back with checks or X's. Now, I'm not whining about, oh no, I got C's twice in kindergarten, but back then it did mean a lot to me. It seemed unfair, and like there was some sort of bias holding me back from being able to get better grades. And a few of the other boys kind of got bitter about this too. So to try and steer away from this, I want to talk to you about maybe when you're a parent, some ways that you can help, or maybe if some of you become teachers, ways that you can be aware of this. And you can, one of these ideas is adjusting rather than belittling, encouraging progress, and then I want to tell you about some programs that can help rowdy behavior to make your child more successful in the classroom. Okay, so let's start off with why this bias is such a bad thing and about the bias existing in the first place. So first of all, this isn't just my thoughts and feelings. There are several studies that have been done. I actually went around in this class, and I think I asked every one of you, or almost every one of you, and 75% of you said that you had noticed a difference in the way that boys were treated either disciplinary-wise or grading-wise, whether it be a peer or brother or something like that. A study done by U.S. News said that the same levels of behavioral problems, including difficulty sustaining attention, regulating emotions, delaying gratification, and forming positive relationships with teachers and peers, were found both in boys and girls. Studies also showed that even when they do have the same behavior, the boys tend to be penalized more. So on top of it seeming like boys come to school with more of this behavior, they are penalized more for it. And adding on to that, in elementary, this being disciplined for this kind of behavior can actually snowball. And for example, if a boy were to make fart noises in kindergarten, as they do, and they got in trouble for that and shunned, just got sent to the corner, and eventually that would snowball into them being the same kid that doesn't turn in their homework and vapes in the bathrooms in high school. And this is actually found to be more so for boys than even girls. The younger experience that they have affect them more later on in life than girls would. Now, putting the disciplinary side aside, we have the grading side. And one of these first studies to go over the differences between boys and girls in grading, one of the first ones showed that girls and boys could score the same, like right problem versus wrong problem wise, on tests even such as math and science, but the girls would still be giving higher grades even when the boys were objectively even or better. And this was harder to look at in subjects like English because everything's kind of subjective, but it was shown there too that kind of similar looking essays were still graded lower than the girls. So where do we go from here? We obviously can't change the way that school looks at discipline. It's obviously that way for a reason, and kids in the classrooms that we have need to be quiet and pay attention, and boys are more rowdy, so it's tougher for them to do that in kindergarten. So what if instead we kind of adjusted or flipped the way that we approach this kind of situation? First of all, if anyone becomes a parent in here, maybe something you could do if you have a little boy, instead of, and this goes for any child really, instead of just belittling him and telling him not to do that, and telling him it was bad, you should adjust how they think about it, how to approach the situation. Another thing you can do is encourage them, and you want them to keep going into school, and one of the most important things is to make them view school, well, not make them, but encourage them to view school as a positive place to be. Because as soon as they label it, it starts to go downhill really quickly. And the last thing I want to talk to you about is some programs that can help your child if they are more rowdy, which is more often boys, but you can use them if you have more rowdy girls too. One of these programs is called Montessori. Montessori, this is directly from their website, is a method of education that is based on self-directed activity, hands-on learning, and collaborative play. In Montessori classrooms, children make creative choices in their learning, while the classroom and the highly trained teacher offer age-appropriate activities to guide the process. Children work in groups or alone to develop their maximum learning potential. So places like this lets kids that normally, sit there and then they talk and stuff, they, instead of being waiting to be asked questions, they kind of ask the questions and they guide their own learning process. And this lets everyone go at their own pace and helps kids from being jittery, and they're standing up and they're sitting down, they're doing a ton of other things rather than just sitting there and listening to a teacher. Another one of these programs called YMCA Apple Tree, and this is directly off their website as well. It says children enrolled at Apple Tree YMCA are exposed to a variety of fun and enriching activities, including field trips, 8 playgrounds, early learning, forest activities, physical wellness, kids gym, and outdoor education. This one focuses more on the physical activity aspect of things and helps them to get their energy out, especially if they're high energy kids. So let's recap. What do we do to keep a bias between boys and girls from affecting their learning environment? Well, first of all, especially with boys, make sure that in their young age schooling, make sure that you're encouraging them and you're not belittling them, and you adjust how they approach the situations that they may have handled wrongly in the first place. Try and be attentive to any complaints they may have about grading, and look for some of these programs that might help your kid stay up with the other children in the school. And by doing all 3 of these things, you can have your child in a fair learning experience.
The first program, like you said, did you find any studies on that?
Yes,
working?
they're on what? On working?
Like, how they work?
Oh yes, there have been several studies that shown not necessarily just Montessori outside of their own website claiming, but like programs such as this and programs like this do have a positive impact on not only grades but also discipline. Like their discipline records will go down as like there's a positive trend in between, if they attend these programs, then they also get in less trouble and their grades are better.
Just talk about how the kindergarten kind of snowball into discipline in high school. Kind of how does that progress?
Okay, so like I said, it's a lot more magnified with boys, but like I said, that example where he's making fart noises, he gets shunned, he gets sent to the corner. Well, then he thinks in kindergarten, well, school sucks, I don't want to be here anymore. And that just magnifies and keeps going and keeps going and keeps going, and it's especially bad for little boys. And it really can lead to them being the same type of kid that won't turn in their homework and drops out and stuff like that, just because, he gets in trouble for something silly in kindergarten and he becomes bitter towards school. I'm sorry, you've raised your hand first twice and I didn't see that your hand was just...
Is Montessori or that program offered in any towns or cities?
I know they have one. The one that I specifically looked up was Montessori for northeast Indiana. No, northwest Indiana. Yeah. Getting out of approval. That's the one that I specifically looked at. It also seemed to be. It's also kind of a form of education, not necessarily just like the company itself. I mean, that is the name of the people that run, but it's also like a certain form, and it has something to do with some base off some root of some word. But yeah.
It's the developer's last name. Her last name was Montessori. You don't need to know that.